which commanded the stars, giving life its fullest brilliance. The Elden Ring. Oh, Elden Ring.
Why, hello there. Holy crap, we are actually finally doing another episode of Elden Ring So Far. This is episode 4 of Elden Ring So Far, and we are continuing information about the story and world. It has been almost 2 years since I did episode 1, which covered the story and world of Elden Ring, as we learned it from the interviews with Miyazaki and the announcement trailer. And you can check out episode 1 linked in the description above. Now, most of the information in there will be covered here as it relates to the game, but if you're looking for information about the development timeline, there is some information in there that is certainly worth checking out if you want the whole picture. So in this episode, we are covering what I would consider development level information, which may not reflect the final product. We'll be looking at story and world details found in the Digic announcement trailer concept art, the Chinese concept art that was leaked, and the leaked internal trailer. All of these sources are years old at this point and represent an earlier stage of development than where the game is currently at. So in the short term, this is news for the game, but in the long run, it's something that we can compare against the final product to better understand how Elden Ring developed. So just keep in mind that I'm aiming to better understand this information now in order to compare it against what we ultimately get with Elden Ring, and that everything here can and likely will change to some degree. So let's start with the story information. So we got a leaked internal trailer from Bandai Namco Europe, meant for consumption by shareholders and not the public, that leaked on March 1st, 2021. So in the leaked internal trailer, we get this narration.
Crossed the sea of fog all the way to the Riftlands. Well, this is the very edge of the map. Imagine what drives you to seek the Elden Ring. I suppose you can't be talked into turning back. Very well then.
So in this dialogue, there's a fun combination of Fromsoftware symbols. There's fog, which in Demon Souls separated Boletaria from the world. Crossing the sea to some mysterious and cursed land is found in Kingsfield and Eternal Ring. And we're going to the Riftlands, which to me reminds me of the Convergence in Lothric in Dark Souls 3. And we're at the very edge of the map. And if I was a betting man, I'd say it's the northern edge. This is all indicative of FromSoft's rich house style, in which they remain surprisingly consistent in their symbolic shorthand and can be recognized by fans of their works. We come to this mysterious and cursed land of FromSoftware symbolism to seek the Elden Ring.
That which commanded the stars, giving life its fullest brilliance.
And in June 2019, in an interview, Miyazaki said, "The Elden Ring is the name given to a mysterious concept that defines the world itself. As the announcement trailer implied, this Elden Ring has been shattered. The significance of this will be one of the important themes of the game." And Ezra Crab, in a June 2019 interview with Miyazaki, wrote in his article, Miyazaki went on to say that the Elden Ring isn't even about a ring that you wear on your finger, but that ring is used in the context of circle. So how does a mysterious concept command and define the world? How does it shatter? How do you seek out a shattered concept? We don't know, but it's supposed to be mysterious, as Miyazaki said. But there is some information we learned in the Digic announcement trailer concept art that I think is worth noting here. So Digic Pictures is an animation studio who was hired by FromSoftware to create interior shots of this person hammering away, as well as this shattering imagery. In January 2021, Digic concept artists Gabriel Bjork, Strom released their work. They took the concept art down quickly, but I was able to collect the images. The working theory is that their NDA was up as of 2021 because the game was originally supposed to be out by now. There were 2 sections of the concept art I'd like to call out specifically here. Before this concept art was released, it was largely believed that the person shown here was a blacksmith with a hammer smashing something. maybe the Elden Ring against an anvil. The surface we see the scepter being smashed against is not an anvil according to the concept art, but a dais, in which we learn by this image entitled Dais Options. The other image I'd like to point out here is the concept art entitled Scepter Options, which was previously believed to be a hammer. A scepter is a physical object that represents sovereignty and power. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Elden Ring is described as commanding the stars while we see this image of the scepter on screen in the announcement trailer. When the scepter was thought to be a hammer, it made sense to assume that this object was shattering the Elden Ring, but knowing it's a scepter and the anvil is actually a dais, I now see the scepter representing the sovereignty and power of the Elden Ring being shattered upon the dais, with the scepter breaking at the end of the trailer. It never really sat right with me that the circumstances of the ring were mysterious, that it was shattered by someone or something, as we literally watched someone doing that. But in this new context, I now see them as destroying a symbol of the Elden Ring's power and sacrificing the scepter and smashing it upon a ceremonial dais. They may have no choice in the matter. They may know that the Elden Ring has been shattered and are compelled or duty-bound to destroy this symbol of its power. This makes more sense to me given how labored and distressed this act seems to be for them. So while the nature of the Elden Ring is still very mysterious, we have a better understanding now that it is connected to the idea of being a ruling entity that commands reality itself as represented by the scepter. This is supposition on my part, but I'd like to speculate just a bit. So the Elden Ring rules reality, and therefore it makes sense that the Elden Ring is the source of all power. So what would happen if someone wanted to rule reality themselves, or harness the power of the Elden Ring? An important theme Miyazaki mentioned in his Xbox News interview is the will or ambition of mankind. This piece of concept art is supposed to represent that theme, as well as portray the darkness that the world and story possess. A character representing both the ambition of man and the darkness of the story doesn't make me think that man's ambition is a force for good in this scenario. What if this will or ambition of mankind led someone, or some individuals, to try and rise beyond their station and take the power of the Elden Ring for themselves, and in the process, shattered the Elden Ring and shattered reality? The many-armed character in the announcement trailer wears a crown, another symbol of sovereignty and power. Perhaps this character was a man who was not given power but sought the power of the Elden Ring. Perhaps not, but it is worth keeping an eye on symbols of power as they seem to be important to the themes of Elden Ring. So let's move on from speculating on the story to talking about the world. Between the bits of leaked concept art and the leaked internal trailer, we now have a glimpse of the actual world of Elden Ring. As mentioned previously, the game takes place across the Sea of Fog in the Riftlands at the edge of the map. I want to note that stuff like the Sea of Fog and the Riftlands could be placeholders, and those names could change. Fromsoftware changes names during development all the time. In the Riftlands, we caught glimpses of a number of points of interest. There's this Spanish or Moorish castle, this Gothic castle, this Norman-style castle. We saw a giant head. We saw a large cauldron or brazier. We saw underground locales like this bridge, what looks to be a temple with a statue, this cavern, and we saw one giant golden transparent tree with a long bridge, and at least one other giant tree. So for the castles, the differences in architecture could indicate different kingdoms. At the very least, it creates visual variety that helps keep things fresh and provide distinct structures that make it easier to triangulate your location when you're moving out in the world. We get an example of how different the architecture could look as it moves from night to day, as the Spanish castle is seen at night when the player is fighting this scorpion-tailed enemy. So according to Long Shi, the Chinese content creator, this giant head could allegedly be a reference to Muspelheim from Norse mythology. Surtur, a giant in that realm, wields a flaming sword that he uses to fight in Ragnarok. Could this giant head be a location for a dungeon? At least it's another distinct visual landmark. So in this snowy environment, we see this strange object that could either be a large cauldron or a brazier. I'm not sure what it's about, but it's easy to pick out in the landscape and is another good way to triangulate yourself, and I assume will tie into the lore or the world in some way, if it doesn't have a mechanical function. So we see these underground locales, and according to Insider Omnipotent, we are supposed to form some kind of shortcut system by moving through the underground. So this isn't official information, it's subject to change, and I would take it with a grain of salt, but it is interesting to imagine what could happen in these underground shortcuts because they seem much larger than just simply getting from point A to point B, and look like there will definitely be encounters and secrets down there. So the most prominent landmark in the leak trailer is this giant transparent golden tree and the adjacent bridge. You can see the bridge and tree in multiple shots, and it seems to function as like a main focal point of the world. The function and importance of this tree is not known, but between the bridge and the tree, a number of references have been brought up. The bridge has reminded many, including myself, of the aqueduct from the Shadow of the Colossus that runs across the desert. The golden tree has been compared to the world tree Yggdrasil from Norse mythology, the world spiral tree from the Berserk manga, and these are both trees that reach between planes of existence. I personally also see Laurelin, the golden tree of Amun from Tolkien mythology, which functions as the sun in Valinor before the creation of the sun in the mythology of the Lord of the Rings. So while this tree is likely a creation unique to the world of Elden Ring, it's worth keeping these potential inspirations in mind and just look at it moving forward to see what it ends up being, and then you sort of have an idea where the inspiration may have come from. And this is not the only instance of tree imagery in Elden Ring that we've seen. The concept art from Digic shows that there was much more tree imagery in the concept art for the parts Digic did for the trailer, and even appears to show the cavernous space where that scene takes place as being inside a tree or a number of large trees. It is worth noting that the tree imagery was largely removed in the final version of the trailer, with the roots and depictions of the tree being removed, as well as the scepter going from a wooden scepter to a stone scepter. All of this could indicate a change in direction, but it's worth keeping in mind. Lastly, regarding the golden transparent tree, the Millwood Knights of the Dark Souls 3 Ashes of Ariandel DLC have the symbol of a tree on much of their armor. In the item description for the Millwood set, it says, "Armor worn by Knights of Millwood. The charbronze breastplate and the thick black cape are adorned with the symbol of the ethereal oak. When the fabled Millwood Forest was discovered, it was a vacant ruin. The only thing left was the ethereal oak, stood rotting. No corpses were discovered, yet their belongings lay neatly on the ground." The ethereal oak seems like it could be a reference to this tree in Elden Ring. If so, then we know that the concept of this large golden tree was present in early development of Elden Ring, which could have been pre-development during the creation of the Ashes of Ariandel DLC. The last topic I wanted to mention regarding this giant tree is that I don't think it's the only one. You can see a tree in the distance in a few shots. This cannot be the golden tree, as the golden tree is clearly accompanied by the bridge and much closer in this shot with the dragon, and the other tree is much further away and has no bridge connected to it. In the Digic concept art, the dais always has 8 sides, and there is a rumor of 8 kingdoms being in the game. While that is unconfirmed, it is a funny coincidence at the very least that the dais would have 8 sides, and that in 5 out of the 8 iterations of this image, that a tree would be depicted upon each face. This is speculation based upon limited evidence, but there could be a large tree in each of the 8 kingdoms of Elden Ring. I won't speculate further as to how this could function, but let me know in the comments what role you think these trees play in the world of Elden Ring. So what can we glean about the landmarks that we've seen? There is an architectural and visual variety like we've not seen in the Souls games, which makes a ton of sense in an open world where it's important to be able to navigate the world using visually distinct landmarks to triangulate yourself. The different styles of architecture also help build out the world, as different styles could be associated with the different kingdoms or groups. These could be the classic Dark Souls style dungeons mentioned by Miyazaki, with these areas serving as potential gates to progress or places containing important plot devices or bosses. Landmarks like the giant trees and the giant head play up the mythological feel of the world and again reinforce a sense of scale that we've never seen before. These fantastical, grandiose landmarks hint towards a mythology we've yet to learn about, and that has me very excited. And lastly, for this episode, I'd like to point out some new character details as they relate to the story and world. So in the announcement trailer in E3 2019, people ended up calling this character the Blacksmith. and it was uncertain if it was one or two people because it seemed like it was almost alternating between shots. And the Digit concept art shed some light on this topic. In an image entitled Vacuum GIF, you can see a person alternating between male and female. If it's intended to be the same person, I'm not sure if they're transforming or changing or what exactly is going on, but we do know this person is not a blacksmith, that they are wielding a scepter and they're hitting it against a dais. In the concept art, this person is rooted in place, but much of this imagery is gone in the final trailer. If I were to hazard a guess, I would say that they're a priest or even like a tree spirit, and instead of smashing the Elden Ring as we once thought, they are compelled or duty-bound to destroy the scepter because the Elden Ring has been shattered. Next, we have this big lad. In the announcement trailer, he gets speared, he watches the sky burn, emanates gold not unlike that which is emanating from the dais, and it's streaming out of their wounds. In Long Shi's leaked concept art, we also see this guy. So it seems like this was not his death in the announcement trailer, but perhaps a transformation or change. In this concept art, he seems pretty pissed off. Also in the concept art from Long Shi, we see a snake person with a head coming out of the side of them, and there seem to be extra limbs and arms and other people potentially in there. So these are more images of bodies and body parts being recycled and repurposed in unnatural ways. This concept art seems like it's legit, but still take these two things with this lad and then the snake guy with a grain of salt. We see this spider dude or another spider dude in the leaked trailer. He's holding a shield with this recurring eye symbol that pops up a few times. He seems pathetic and standoffish, backing away behind the shield, and he has this really great scream in the leaked internal trailer. There's also this warrior who seems to have a scorpion tail. Whereas the spider guy is more obviously unnatural, I'm unsure if this is part of the fantasy of the world or more body horror. I'm not sure if the tail is natural to this person or if it's something that has been added on or they have transformed it some way. Probably the coolest design we've seen so far, in my opinion, are these tree giants. It's an awesome design, and I really love just the mixture of horror and also just like calm serenity about them as they're moving across this shot and just carrying this cart, but in this really horrible circumstance. So take this extremely with a grain of salt, but Long Shi compared these guys to the Green Man. The Green Man is a Celtic pagan symbol of death and rebirth, depicted most commonly as a guy with a face of sticks and leaves. It is most commonly found now in churches as ornament in the building. We don't know much about these creatures, but we do see that they are forcibly attached to this cart by being like harpooned through the back and through the open cavity of their chest and stomach. And it seems in that case that they're being subjugated, and they're certainly being treated less than human and worse than livestock. There's also a dragon in the trailer, and one of the details you can make out is that it seems like their wings are tattered and they're potentially not in great shape, or maybe that's just how they look. I don't have much to say about the dragon, but I will make mention of the Millwood Knights again from Dark Souls 3. The Millwood Great Arrow item description says, "It is said that the Millwood Knights used these to face their sworn enemy, the Abyss Dragon. Their sworn enemy is the Abyss Dragon, who is likely Midir in Dark Souls 3, but I wanted to point out a potential, if unlikely, connection." The last character is this Onmyoji looking person seen at the end of the leaked trailer. Nothing is known about this character, but there's two things that I think are notable. This character has a distinctly Asian style in an otherwise Western looking world. Could this be a hint at more Japanese or Asian elements in this world? I would welcome the variety. It would further build out the scope of the world, and it would add just scale that I think can only be a positive in this context. The other notable bit here is the hue of the moon, which is very reminiscent of the Moonlight Greatsword. So, MLG confirmed? And that is what we know about the development of the story and world so far. These leaked pieces of concept art in the leaked trailer were not meant to be seen by the public until at least after the game released, and the trailer was likely never meant to be seen. What we have seen and discussed here is subject to change. I still find it fascinating to get this glimpse into the development process, and to keep an eye on how what we have seen changes and develops as we get new information, and what that says about the development of Elden Ring. So, As usual, if you enjoyed this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, but most of all, thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for another Elden Ring So Far episode, and hopefully we won't have to wait another 2 years until we get even more story and world information. Again, thanks for watching.